So let's take a look at the Yuan and Ming dynasties. Your essential question is, what are the similarities and differences between the Yuan and Ming dynasties? So in your summary, you must explain some similarities and some differences to get full credit for your summary. All right, geography. So the geography, they lived in tribes. So the Yuan and Ming dynasty, they lived in tribes throughout the country. They lived in the vast plains of North China. So in northern China, they lived in the plains, which you could see here. They're just vast rolling flatlands. So like this, there we go. This is Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, he is the first one on your vocabulary. His original name was Temujin. So that was his original birth name. He will give himself the name Genghis Khan later in life. So interesting facts about Genghis Khan. When he was a young boy, his father was poisoned by a rival clan. So remember I said that they lived in tribes. So somebody from another tribe came over to their tribe and they poisoned Genghis Khan's father. At age 15, he was taken prisoner by this other clan. And he never forgot the humiliation that he felt of watching his father die and then being taken prisoner and treated badly by this other clan, and he is going to use that humiliation to fuel his great escapades as life goes on. Genghis Khan united the tribes as one, so he went from tribe to tribe and united them, convincing them that they were stronger as one whole union. And he took the title of Genghis Khan. So this means Genghis Khan means the universal ruler. That's what Khan means, universal ruler. So here we come with the Mongols. He organized the Mongols into a powerful army. So remember I said that he united all of the tribes. He's creating this mass army to help him conquer more of China. He led expeditions of conquest, and people that were conquered became tributary states. We studied tributary states earlier in this chapter as well. So tributary states would basically be protected by the ruler, but also by the armies. They were asked to give specific things like resources, materials, money, things like that as tribute to the throne in order to basically pay for their safety. In 1211, he led armies into northern China. So remember I said he was creating this powerful army and uniting these tribes in order to gain more land and conquer more parts of China. We're going to look at a map in just a moment that shows you how big this empire gets. By 1227, all of northern China was now under Mongol control. So he called his tribe the Mongols. So here's just a little quote for you. There used to be a city of Ryzan in the land of Ryzan, but its wealth and glory ceased, and there is nothing to be seen in this city except for smoke, ash, and barren earth. So this is the tale of the destruction of Ryzan. So as Mongols went from tribe to tribe and from area to area, they would basically burn everything in their wake if the people did not just surrender to them as tributary states. So eventually Genghis Khan, he dies, and Kublai Khan in 1260 became the ruler. This is Genghis Khan's grandson. And he declared himself in 1279 the emperor of all of China. So he wasn't just the controller of the Mongols. He just wasn't just head of the tribe. He wasn't just a Khan. He now declared himself the emperor of all of China. And this is where the Yuan dynasty begins. And Yuan dynasty lasted from 1280 to 1365. So you can see, compared to the Tang and the Song dynasty that we studied earlier, the Sui dynasty, the Yuan dynasty is almost twice as large as any of those dynasties. And you can see it spreads all throughout China. So when he gives himself the title, the Emperor of China, he is deserving of that because he does basically have control of all of China. So the Mongols are different than the Chinese. So because they are Mongols and they're taking over Chinese territories, they're going to see a little bit of a blend of cultures, but you're also going to see kind of a war between the two cultures. The Chinese saw the Mongols as very rude and uncivilized. You have to realize that when they're coming in and they're conquering and they're burning things down and they're basically forcing people to do what they say and forcing people out of their homes that they've lived in, they see them as rude and uncivilized. Remember that China at this point with Confucianism, with Ren and Li, is concerned for others and appropriate behavior. And the Mongols are doing the exact other opposite of that. So you can see how the Chinese ideas of Confucianism would war against what the Mongols are doing. China decided they were going to keep their own culture. So the Chinese people that are being taken over by the Mongols, they decided they're going to keep their own culture. They're going to keep Confucianism and Buddhism, and they are going to try and preserve as much of their culture as possible. And the Mongols eventually, because they all live together, they do adopt some of these Chinese cultures. Some of the things, though, that they have a complete division on is because the Mongol army is stronger, obviously, because they won all of the Chinese territory. Only the Mongols were allowed to serve in the army. So the army was based 100% on Mongol soldiers. The highest jobs in government also could only be held by Mongols. Your emperor's a Mongol, then most of his underlings are going to be Mongols as well. They impose very high taxes on the Chinese. So this is part of being a tributary state as well as the high taxes. Basically, they're paying for their freedom. They are paying for their protection. So they're paying to be able to stay where they were living. Tax money went into public work projects. So this is very similar to what we have now. Public work projects would be like roads, government buildings, bridges, to help with agriculture, to help with aqueducts and architecture, things like that, things that the public would use, museums, schools. So one thing they did is improve the roads, which with the Silk Road being already a couple hundred years old, improving roads and allowing people easier travel to trade was something that was very beneficial to everybody. They built a new capital in Dadu. Soldiers protected trade, so not only did they rebuild roads, but these Mongol soldiers would protect the trade routes. And the most known explorer and tradesman was Marco Polo. So you might have heard of Marco Polo. We will also study Marco Polo later in the year. Between 1275 and 1295, he traveled to China many times on sea voyages to trade with China. So the decline, just like all other empires, the decline of the Mongols, they tried to invade Japan 2 different times and failed. Next chapter, when we start learning about Japan, we're going to look more into this Mongol invasion that they tried 2 separate times and had the same problem 2 separate times. So they did not learn from their mistakes the first time. You could kind of guess, I'm going to go back a little bit just to get rid of that. You could kind of see by the picture here, if this is Japan, this is land, you have to go across the sea to get to Japan. So this is the Mongols here in all these boats, these long boats, and you can kind of guess as to what the problem was that kept the Mongols from invading Japan. So the Mongols tried to invade Japan 2 times, and 2 times they failed. This weakened the Mongol army. They lost a lot of men at sea and in the war between them and Japan. So it weakened the Mongol army specifically by numbers. So Zhu Yongzhang led the rebel army and took China back. So once they saw that the Mongols were weakened, the Chinese put together their own army, and Zhu Yongzhang put together this rebel army and took China back from the Mongols. So we will watch this video on the Yuan dynasty. It kind of is a really good summary of everything about the Mongol Empire. We'll watch this in class and you'll be able to take notes on it. Okay. Now we go to the Ming dynasty. So now China has all of China back. They took it back from the Mongols. So Zhu Yongzhang became the emperor, and the Ming dynasty lasted the longest from 1368 to 1644. It was the longest lasting Chinese dynasty. It was very stable and very prosperous. You could see it's only half the size of the Yuan dynasty used to be. So on your one pager at the end, you will draw this dividing line. You could see what used to be the Yuan dynasty is outlined here. It's kind of the whitish color, and inside is the Ming dynasty. You can see it's about half the size. But you'll draw that border using the scribble tool on a map on your one pager. But you can see it's about half the size. Zhang He is a sailor. So he was able to improve ships and sailing skills, teach people how to sail. He became a very famous explorer for the Chinese dynasty during the Ming dynasty. And between 1405 and 1433, he led 7 different voyages. We're going to take a look at a map in a moment that maps out all 7 voyages for you so you could see all the different places that he went. And he had a huge fleet of ships. So this is an example of what one of his ships might have looked like. So he sailed to India, Persia, and even Africa. This is kind of a picture. It's he would go around, it kind of reminded me of like Noah's Ark. He would go around to all these other countries and bring back these exotic animals. It's one thing that he had a passion for, was exotic animals. So he would bring animals back from Africa and Persia and India. And a lot of the leaders of these different countries would give gifts to China. And he would also, in turn, give gifts from China to these leaders. So he's forming all of these allies. He's forming all of these friendships with all these other countries, which is going to serve him really well later on when other countries try to invade them. They could call on their allies for help. And it's also expanding their trade. So, like I said, they also brought gifts back from all these countries to the emperor. So you can see here, these are some of the different routes that Zhang He would take. So this is all of China right here. So he would go to India, he would go to Arabia, he would go to Africa, he would go down to the islands, he would go all the way into the Persian Gulf. So you could kind of see all the different places he would go. It says a main fleet and a secondary fleet. So remember I said he had a fleet of ships, a fleet meaning multiple ships. So he would sail many different places, go to many different trade routes and trade towns, and be able to trade quite widely. So with tax money, like we said before, tax money goes towards public service and also towards public buildings, roads, things like that. Well, one of the things that our new emperor is going to build is called the Forbidden City. So the Forbidden City still stands today, and we're going to see multiple pictures of what the Forbidden City looks like. This is one here. So he built the Forbidden City. This was basically a large palace that had hundreds of imperial residence, temples, and government buildings. Notice that it says it is a large palace, meaning the royalty, the emperor and his family, right? Hundreds of imperial residents. Imperial means high-standing residents. It had temples, so Buddhist temples, and government buildings. So looking at that list, you can see who is not on that list. farmers, peasants, merchants, tradesmen. So those people were not allowed to live in the Forbidden City. Oops, let's go back. So you can see Forbidden City was very intricate, lots of mosaic tile, even intricate tiles on the roof, lots of sculptures. This is a picture of the Forbidden City. You see this giant wall around the Forbidden City, and there is one entrance. So if need be, they can close down these entrances and they could use these up here like barracks and protect the city. They were able to, at some point, bring people in and shut that down if they needed to protect their people in war. There's another picture here. It's a huge tourist attraction, as you can imagine. Another one of the building projects was the Great Wall of China. I'm sure many of you have heard about that before. They restored the Great Wall of China and expanded it. It was more than 2,000 miles long. So you can see it expands, it goes up into the mountains. So big building projects. They abolished some offices of some powerful officials, so they were minimizing the government, not having too many people in control. And the emperor took a larger role in running the government. So this is where you're going to see kind of a shift in the government where they have less of a bureaucracy, less of people volunteering to be part of the government, and the emperor is going to take more control of the government and have less say from people on the outside. They kept the civil service exam, but they used this exam to appoint censors or officials to send out an investigation basically about behaviors of the local leaders and judge qualities of the school. So the civil service exam, you were no longer like a really high official, but you would pass this test and then they would send you out to watch government officials to make sure that they were behaving correctly, to basically supervise local leaders, go into the schools, make sure that the schools' education was on par. So they were more of investigators than they were active members in the government making decisions. So they kept the civil service exam, but scholar officials look quite different as their job title and what they were responsible for. Foreign relations. So here is where isolationism comes into play. In the 1430s, they banned foreign trade. So they were starting to get a lot more people coming in through the Silk Road and wanted attempted invasions and corruption. And so they decided to ban foreign trade to be able to kind of keep to themselves and only kind of stay within the realm of China. And China was so large that they really had most of the resources that they really did need. So China became isolationist, literally isolated themselves from all the other countries and avoided contact with those countries. They wanted to keep their culture pure. They wanted to keep their people pure. They wanted to keep all basically what they believed to be evil outside of their country. So we will watch the video on the Ming Dynasty in class, and you will add to your notes on the Ming Dynasty as well. So at this point, you're going to be working on your map here. Get rid of that. Oh. Okay, sorry, it signed me out there for a second. So what you're going to do, since we kind of see isolationism, if we go back to this one, it's pretty much the end of the Ming Dynasty, because once you isolate yourself and you don't have income coming in or more trade coming in, you're not going to be as successful. That brings us to the end of the Ming Dynasty. So for this last part, for your one pager, very, very carefully read the directions. You're going to use the scribble tool, which is found here. You're going to click on that and you're going to click on scribble. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go right here to where China is. And you are going to use a red line for the border of the Yuan dynasty. So what I would do is I would change the color of my scribble tool to red. So I'm going to draw the Yuan dynasty is like all in here. It's quite large. And it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? But I'm going to change that to red. So the Yuan dynasty, I just changed that to red. And then I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to do the same thing for the Ming dynasty. And the Ming dynasty, remember, was like half of that, right? It was kind of like right in here. And I'm going to leave that one blue. So I have a red line for the Yuan dynasty, a blue line for the Ming dynasty. And then I'm going to put one fact for Genghis Khan, one fact for Kublai Khan, and one fact for Zheng He. If you double click on these, you could type in them. You're just putting one fact each. No images this week, just one fact each. Who were these people? And then draw the borders. You could see I put the maps here so you could kind of see where to draw your borders. They don't have to be perfect. You just basically need to be able to see that the Ming versus the Yuan dynasty and how big they were. And that's it. And we will have assessment review on Friday. And I will see you guys later. Have a great day.